Welcome to another episode of Theory for Drummers. Today I'm going to be covering two concepts, semiquavers and semiquaver rests. Semiquavers are also known as 16th notes, and semiquaver rests are also known as 16th note rests. Let's get straight into it. Starting with semiquavers or 16th notes, we can see that there are a number of different ways that they can be drawn. They can be drawn in a group with stems up. They can be drawn individually with stems up. They can be drawn in a group with stems down, and they can be drawn individually with stems down. Let's look at each of these and describe the characteristics of each. With the stems up grouping, you have the stems going up from the right side of the note head. You also have two horizontal lines connecting the notes together. With the semiquaver with the stems up individually, you still have the stem going up off the right side of the note head, and you have two squiggly lines coming off to the right from the note head. With the semiquaver that stems down in a group, you've got the notes with the stem coming off the right side of the note head, the left side of the note head, and you have two horizontal lines connecting the notes together. And last but not least, you've got the note with the stem going down that's individual, and you've got the stem coming off the left side of the note head, and you have the two squiggly lines. But unlike the pattern that we're seeing here where everything is left instead of right with the stems going down, the squiggly lines still come off the right side of the stem, whether the individual semiquaver is a stems down semiquaver or a stems up semiquaver. Alright, now that we know what semiquavers look like, let's discuss the duration of a semiquaver. The duration of the semiquaver is 1/4 of a beat. And if we compare it to the things we've already learnt so far in previous videos, compare it to a crotchet, that's 1 beat. Compare it to a quaver, that's 1/2 of a beat. And now we have semiquavers which are 1/4 of a beat. If we have a look at this slide here, you've got a bar of crotchets, a bar of quavers underneath, and a bar of semiquavers underneath that. Let's compare them one by one. If you have a look at the crotchets, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 counting because each crotchet exists at the start of each bar. If you have a look at a bar of quavers, you still have the 1, 2, 3, 4 counting because you have the notes that exist at the start of the bar, or the start of the beat, I should say. But you also have the ands, which are the notes that start halfway through each beat. With semiquavers, you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, all the notes that start at the start of the beat. You also have all of the ands that start halfway through each beat. But in between all of those notes, you have more notes. You have the E's that exist between the number and the and of that number, and you have the R's, which exist between the and the following number. Now notice how when I said E's, I pronounced it like the letter E, but when I said R, I didn't pronounce it like the letter A. I didn't say A, I said R, A-H. The reason why I pronounce it R instead of A is it rolls off the tongue easier. If you were to try to say 1E and A, 2E and A, 3E and A, 4E and A, it's very hard to say that fast. And when you're drumming fast and you're trying to keep up with your voice, it's easy to say things that roll off the tongue and hard to say things that don't. So replace the A with the R in your pronunciation and you'll get something that's very easy to say. You can say it super fast like this. 1E and A, 2E and A, 3E and A, 4E and A. That's difficult to say, but 1E and A, 2E and A, 3E and A, 4E and A. That's easy to say. Okay? That's why we say R instead of A. Let's move on to the next slide. Here we have a slide of semiquaver rests, which is what that thing is there, replacing the semiquavers on the 1, 2, 3, 4 in our bar of semiquavers. Now this is useful if you wanted to play a rhythm in which you rest on the first quarter of the beat, but you play the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter of each beat. Now, this is the cleanest way to write down this rhythm, and so you will see this sort of rhythm as you make your way through your drumming journey. But there are other examples where, let's say, you're resting on the E instead of resting on the number, or you're resting on the and instead of resting on the number, or you're resting on the instead of resting on the number. And in all of those examples, it's actually possible to avoid using semiquaver rests altogether to get the same rhythm. And that's what we're going to discuss in the future slides. Here we have a bar with a rest on all the E's, and if you have been following along so far, the most basic way to do it, based on your understanding, is to use the rests to replace the semiquavers that exist on the E's. Now, there is a better way to write this. The better way is to replace the semiquaver and the semiquaver rest on the first two notes of that pattern with a quaver instead. And that's what we've done down here. This here is a quaver, and then you have your two semiquavers afterwards. Because the quaver lasts for half of a beat, you get the same result. You get a 1, nothing on the E. The next note happens to be the and, because you've used up half of your beat with a quaver at the start. And then the next note after that is a, because they're both semiquavers, the and the semiquaver. Now, how does this look? It's very important to notice how these things look so that you can diagnose it as the correct rhythm. Here you've got one horizontal bar coming off the stem, but with these two notes, you've got two horizontal bars coming off the stems. When you have one horizontal bar coming off the stem, that is a quaver. When you have two horizontal bars coming off the stem, they are semiquavers. And that's how you get the exact same rhythm, whether you use this method or you use this method. Given that this method here does not have any rests, it is the preferred method of writing down this rhythm. Here we have a bar of semiquavers with a rest on the ands. Now, I don't need to spend too much time on this first bar up the top here. You can see that the ands are on the third spot in the group of 4 semiquavers, and you just replace that with the rest, and there you have a situation where you're playing semiquavers resting on all the ands. There is a cleaner way to do this where you avoid putting rests in, and that is shown below. So let me explain to you why this rhythm down below is exactly the same as the rhythm above. You can see the first note here, that is a semiquaver, starts on the 1. The second note is a quaver that starts on the E. Now this confuses a lot of people. We're starting on the E, so we're starting a quarter of the way through the beat. A quarter of the beat has already been used up. And we're using a quaver, which exists for half of a beat. So we've already used up a quarter and then a half, leaving only a quarter of the beat left. Now the last quarter of the beat is the And so we've played a rhythm here that is 1 E and then the next note being That is the same as playing 1 E, resting on the and then playing the And so this is the same as this. Notice how the group of notes down below don't have the rest symbol, whereas the group of notes above need the rest symbol to achieve the same rhythm. And that is why the second way is the better way to do things. You don't have the rest in there. Now let's try and understand why the first note of the group is a semiquaver, why the second note of the group is a quaver, and why the third note of the group is a semiquaver. The first note is a semiquaver because it has 2 horizontal bars coming off it. The second note is a quaver because it only has 1 horizontal bar coming off it. And the third note is a semiquaver because it has 2 horizontal bars coming off it. Let's move on to the next example. This is the final example for this episode. This is a situation where we're resting on all of the R's. So we've got the rest here after your 3 semiquavers for the number, and then the E and the and. Then your R is a rest. There is a better way to write this once again. Simply use a semiquaver and then a semiquaver and then use a quaver at the end. Now if you use a quaver on the and, so this is the 1 E and that is the and, you will not need to play anything all the way till you get to the next beat, which happens to be the 2. So you're playing 1 E and then you're playing 2. That is the same thing as playing 1 E and resting on the R, then playing the 2. And so you can see that this is the same as this, but is the better way to write it down because you don't have to put any rest symbols on the second way compared to the first way where you had to put one rest symbol where the R should have been. Thanks for watching till the end, guys. I really appreciate your time and your attention. If you'd like to watch more Theory for Drummer videos, or you'd like to test out your theory knowledge while supporting the creation of this content, you can do so by heading over to my website, manirasal.com/theory4drummers. Other than that, please do the usual, like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure you click the bell icon to be notified of future videos. Thank you guys, see you at the next one.